Is Band 9 in IELTS writing even possible? I've heard of lots of people getting Band 9 in IELTS reading, listening, and even a Band 9 in IELTS speaking. However, I've never actually come across anybody that's got Band 9 in IELTS writing. Band 8.5, yes, but not Band 9. Anyway, in today's lesson, that's what we're going to be trying to do. We're going to be looking at 9 tips to help you get Band 9 in IELTS writing. Welcome, my name is Eli and I run the website EnglishProTips.com, where we help students get ready for the IELTS test. Now in today's lesson we're going to be looking at 9 tips to help you in IELTS writing. So tip number 1, know which structure you are going to use for the different IELTS questions. Right, in IELTS Task 2 there's basically 5 different essay question types. You can have the agree-disagree questions, advantage-disadvantage questions, discussion questions, double questions, or direct questions. We're going to be covering all of these different question types in my Task 2 writing course. Now, for all of these different question types, the most common that you'll find in Task 2 are the agree-disagree questions. In fact, 38% of the time we've noticed agree-disagree questions coming up in IELTS Task 2. However, you could get an advantage-disadvantage question, a discussion question, a double question, or even, although it's unlikely, a direct question in Task 2. So the important thing is you know which structure you're going to use when you get these different question types. That's going to help you write confidently and quickly during the IELTS test. So for example, if you get an agree-disagree question, you go, okay, I'm going to use the simple structure where I completely agree or I completely disagree. Now, you also need to know what the simple structure looks like for you. So if I were to write it, I would have an introduction, a body paragraph 1 where I have my first idea, body paragraph 2 where I have my second idea, and then a conclusion. And I also know what I'm going to write in each of these paragraphs. So in the introduction, I'm going to introduce the topic and then I'm going to respond to the question. In body paragraph 1, I'm going to have the topic sentence for my first idea. I'm going to develop that idea, probably with an example, and then I'm going to have a linking sentence to relate my idea to the question. I'm going to do the same in body paragraph 2. I'll have a topic sentence with my idea, usually a shorter sentence that is. Then I'll have a longer development and then possibly a link at the end. And then in the conclusion, I'm going to restate my position and summarize my ideas. And the important thing for you is that you practice this before you go to do your IELTS test. So you need to practice the different structures and know which structure you're going to use for an agree-disagree question, an advantage-disadvantage question, a discussion question, a double question, or a direct question. Okay, so learn the different structures and know which structure you're going to use for each question type before you go to do your IELTS writing test. Tip number 2 is write your opinion in the introduction and conclusion. Now, if we look at the public band descriptors, so this is freely available on the internet and helps you to get an idea of how you're assessed in your IELTS writing. Now, we're going to look at the first one, which is task response, and sometimes referred to as task achievement. And if we look here at band 7, it says presents a clear position throughout the response. So what does a clear position throughout the response mean? Okay, well, it means we're going to have our position in the introduction and conclusion of our essay as well. Okay, so imagine we get a question like this. Teenagers should have regular exams at secondary school as this will prepare them better for life after leaving school. And then the question, to what extent do you agree or disagree with this statement? Okay, quick question. What kind of question is this? To what extent do you agree or disagree with this statement? It's an agree-disagree question, which I said is the most common question you'll get asked in the IELTS writing test. Now, it's important that we give our position, our opinion, in the introduction and conclusion. So you can see the introduction here, and in pink, we have our position. I believe that teenagers should be given regular exams because da-da-da-da-da. Okay, we're also going to have our position in the conclusion as well. In conclusion, and then in pink, I would argue that teenagers should be given regular exams at secondary school because da-da-da-da-da. Okay, so have your position in the introduction and conclusion of your essay. Now, there's something else we can learn from the public band descriptors, and that's if we look here. At band A, it says present a well-developed response to the question with relevant, extended, and supported ideas. So my third tip would be develop your ideas. Let me show you. Let's take our question again about teenagers and doing regular exams. And we're going to have this idea. We're going to say something like, teenagers should have regular exams because they will learn useful skills. Now, that's a relevant idea. However, it's not developed. We need to develop all of our ideas in order to get band 7, 8, and 9 in the IELTS writing test. So what could we write as our development? Well, I personally think the best way to develop an idea is to have an example. So we could say something like this. For example, they will learn time management skills and how to deliver under pressure. However, there are other ways that we could develop our ideas. We could say something like a contrast. If students don't have regular exams that they are required to pass, they might be less likely to develop the ability to push through difficulty in order to reach their goals. So we can also use a contrasting statement to develop our ideas. We could also have a sentence like this. Skill development often comes from repetition of tasks. Through having regular exams, students might be more likely to learn the skills that help them to achieve. Okay, so one of the things I'd like you to take away from this is that it's a good idea to write at least 2 sentences for each idea. So the first sentence introduces the idea, and then the second, and possibly third, and maybe even fourth sentence is going to develop that idea. Don't just write one sentence and then move on to the next idea. Develop all of your ideas. Okay, tip number 4. Work on the accuracy of your grammar. Okay, so of all the public band descriptors, we've got task response, coherence and cohesion, lexical resource, and grammatical range and accuracy. I'd say that it's grammatical range and accuracy that stops people from getting their desired band score. And in particular, I would say it's not the range of accuracy or range of grammar, but actually the accuracy of their grammar. So I think a good idea is to work on the accuracy of your grammar. Now, to help you do this, you can use online writing tools like Grammarly. So in Grammarly, basically, you can type in your practice essays and it will identify where you're missing a comma or a spelling mistake, or maybe a mistake in the grammar that you use, for example, the tense that you use. So you can use Grammarly, and they've got a free punctuation checker. And there's another one called writer.com and then /punctuation checker. And this, again, helps you to identify missing commas, incorrect spelling, and incorrect grammar. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about a guy called Yash who went from band 6 to band 7.5 in his IELTS writing. So a huge improvement in his writing score. And when I asked him about how he improved so much in his writing, he said this: I kept a record of all of my mistakes in a Word document, so a Microsoft Word document. And when I asked him about this Microsoft Word document, he said it was, I think, between 30 and 40 pages. So imagine that. All of the mistakes that he makes in his practice essays, he writes down the sentence where he made a mistake, and then he also writes down the correct version. And then he would regularly look through those mistakes and have a very analytical approach to try and improve upon those mistakes. So thank you, Yash, for such a great idea. Now, something else that Yash and I spoke about is this. Into Google or any search engine, you can type in common mistakes for, and then in his case, Hindi speakers learning English. So common mistakes for Hindi speakers learning English, or for Italian speakers learning English, or Spanish speakers learning English. And that's going to show you a lot of websites that present the common mistakes for people who are learning English with your first language. So for example, if you're a Russian speaker, you're likely to struggle with articles. Now, you should research what are the common mistakes for people with your first language learning English. You're likely to be making a lot of those same mistakes. Tip number 5. Okay, learn the common topics and learn the common questions. So the common topics in IELTS Writing Task 2 are things like the environment, buildings and cities, travel, nature and wildlife, education, skills and learning, work, economy, technology, upbringing, health and happiness, describing people, roles and responsibilities, and also crime as well. So you can see that there are a lot of common topics and a lot of themes that appear in IELTS writing. In fact, the best way to get familiar with these themes and also the common questions that appear in IELTS are basically to do the Cambridge official past paper practice tests. So you can look at the Task 2 essays and do those questions. And by doing those, you'll become familiar with the types of questions, the common questions, and the types of themes that appear in Task 2. I've also got a vocabulary course that I think will help a lot of students to learn words related to these common themes, typically advanced words that you can use in your essays. And each lesson will have between 20 and 30 words related to this theme. And then below that, you'll find some useful quizzes where you have to use these words and identify which of these words fits into the correct space. You'll also find some personalization activities to help you remember the words, and then also some model essays related to the topics. So for example, model essays related to the environment. So that's going to help you learn about the common themes and topics that appear in IELTS Task 2. Tip number 6 is to read model essays. So my website, EnglishProTips.com, has a lot of model essays to help you with your IELTS writing. And what I would suggest is look through the model essay, do the gap fill, so choose the correct word, think about which word would fit in the space and then choose the correct word. Below that, have a look at the useful vocabulary. Look at how that useful vocabulary is used in this essay, and if you like the vocabulary and you find it useful for you, keep a record of that vocabulary, maybe in your own vocabulary book. The next thing that I would recommend that you do is to write your own answer for this question. So you can write your essay, and you can choose whether to write it with a time limit or just to give yourself plenty of time to write the essay. After you've finished that, compare your answers. So look at the model answer and look at your answer and compare. Are your ideas the same? Have you communicated your ideas in the same way? Have you written your position in the same way? Have you put it in the same places? Where do you agree? Where do you disagree? What vocabulary is the same? What vocabulary is different? Just try and make your approach to writing more structured and analytical. Now, one student even had extended on this approach, and what she did and by the way, she went from band 6.5 to band 7.5 in less than a month, is she would read these model essays before she went to sleep. So during the day, she would study from them, and then before she went to sleep, she would read through the model essays again. And she said that it just helped her to understand more about high-level IELTS writing. Okay, tip number 7 is to read extensively and research topics. Now, I recently spoke to a student called Huda, and she was able to get band 8 in the writing test, which is incredibly impressive. And when I asked her about her approach to her studies, she said something that was very interesting. She said, in order to become a great writer, you have to be a great reader. So her approach to IELTS writing was definitely writing a lot of practice essays, but it also involved a lot of reading. So she did things like went to websites like procon.org, and in procon.org you're going to find lots of common themes and common topics and common questions that appear in IELTS. And you can go into these, so things like the benefits of wearing school uniforms, and you can look at all of the ideas for wearing school uniforms and all of the ideas against wearing school uniforms as well. And they're ordered in a very, or rather the layout is very well ordered. So you can look at the brief idea at the top and then a bit of a development below that. So it's going to help you come up with ideas in your IELTS essays. Now, Huda would also Google the essay question. So if she was going to write a question on should teenagers have regular exams at secondary school, she would type that into Google and actively research that question before she went to write her exam or write her practice essay. And it definitely paid off. She was able to get band 8 in the writing test, which is incredible. Okay, tip number 8, something that nobody can avoid. You need to be writing lots and lots of practice essays. In fact, everybody that I've spoken to that's got band 7 or above, or rather band 7.5 and above, has written a tremendous amount of practice essays. You really do need to write lots in order to get familiar with the style and the theme and the common topics of IELTS writing. Now, I suggest 3 stages. In the first stage, and this is going to be way before your real IELTS writing test, you're going to choose an essay question, ideally with a model answer. Okay, first, read the model answer. So read how a teacher or a high-level student would answer this particular question. Make a record of the vocabulary that you like. So maybe some new vocabulary or vocabulary that you feel really makes this essay a good essay. Then copy the ideas, so write about the same ideas that appear in this model essay. And then write your own essay and take as long as you like. For example, if it takes 2 hours to write the essay, that's fine. If it takes 3 hours, even better. Take as long as you like to write this essay. After you've finished, compare the essays. So we mentioned before, look at the vocabulary you used and the model essay used, the grammar you used and the model essay used, and how you communicate these ideas in different ways. Now, in stage 2, and this is going to be 1 to 2 months before your IELTS test, you need to be a bit stricter on yourself. Choose an essay with a model answer again. This time, research the topic and record any useful vocabulary. So a bit like Huda, you can go on websites like procon.org or Google the essay question and try and find articles about that theme. Next, write your essay. Okay, so you're going to be writing your essay with your own ideas, not copying the ideas from the model essay. Now, at this stage, you really look at the model essay and you compare your ideas and their ideas and the way that you've structured your essay. Okay, so that's going to be in stage 2. Now, in stage 3, you're going to be even harsher with yourself because your exam is coming up. So this is what we would be doing when we've got less than 4 weeks before the IELTS test. Now we're going to be focusing on doing timed writing. So we're going to be trying to finish task 2 essays in 40 minutes, ideally 35 minutes, and maybe even 30 minutes with 5 minutes to check over our writing. Remember, it's always a good idea to check our writing. We're going to try doing task 1 and task 2 together. So giving ourselves 20 to 25 minutes for task 1 and 35 minutes to 40 minutes for task 2. So we're going to put those together. And we're also going to be doing all of the tests in the same day. So we're going to start with a listening test, then we'll do the reading test, and then we'll do the writing test. And we're going to be trying to develop our stamina, which is what we need to be able to do the IELTS writing test. Okay. Tip number 9, evaluate your writing. Now there's 2 ways you can do this. You can do it by yourself or you can do it with a teacher. Okay, if you're going to do it by yourself, then download the public band descriptors and make a point of really trying to learn and analyze these public band descriptors, because you want to be trying to get into the head of an examiner and really understanding what it is that an examiner is looking for. Again, like Yash, who we mentioned earlier, keep a record of your mistakes. So if you know you struggle with articles, then write down when you've missed an article and then write down the corrected version, and really be strict with yourself. Okay, if you've only written an idea with 1 sentence and you haven't developed it, well, don't give yourself band 7 for task achievement or task response. Be strict with yourself. Now, alternatively, you can get a teacher. And if you do have a teacher who's going to evaluate your writing, I really suggest that you ask them to correct your essay. So they show you which mistakes you're making, and they show you the correct version of your essay. It's also important that they give you a band score for each of the criteria, so task achievement or task response, coherence and cohesion, lexical resource, and grammatical range and accuracy. And ideally, you'll be getting a separate score for each of these criteria to know which one you find easy and which one you find more difficult. It's also important that they give you some advice for getting to the next level. So if you're constantly getting band 6, then what do you need to do to be getting band 6.5? Hopefully they'll be giving you some concrete advice for how to get to the next stage. And then also, I think it's a good idea if they can send you resources to help you self-study. So if they know that you're struggling with articles, then ask them to maybe send you some worksheets or to send you some online YouTube videos to help you understand articles better. All right. Best of luck with all of your studies, and I'll see you in the next lesson. All the best. Bye.